Broadcasting live from Antman, the Waste of Walton. This is Pop Culture Reference, your one-stop reference for all things pop culture. I'm one of your hosts, Seamus Connolly.
And I am Garrett Strother.
And if that confusing intro wasn't enough to tip you off, we are talking about two Ant-Man movies today, the original two Ant-Man movies in preparation for the release of Quantumania, which I am hearing weirdly divisive things about. It almost makes me want to watch it more, but it was a good excuse to come revisit these movies, because I always end up liking them more than I remember.
I am fond of the Ant-Men. The one Ant-Man and the Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Of course. Because they will not keep to a consistent sequel
very
naming scheme.
I mean, I don't mind it, but it's a little confusing, I think. And I think this is podcast talk. This is
main segment talk. This is, we're just going to refer to it as Ant-Man 2 anyway, I'm sure. But first, we should jump into the news.
Well, first up, beloved character actor Richard Belzer, best known for his role as detective / sergeant / whatever cop rank he happens to be on whatever series he's on. John Munch has passed away. It's kind of remarkable. I would imagine he's one of the longest running consistent TV characters of all time.
Yeah, it's been through so many different series that he has been a consistent regular and pretty much a fan favorite through a lot of what he's done on all these different crime shows. So it is impressive.
And we're going to be talking about him. We're going to spend a weirdly short amount of time talking about him right now, because we are going to dive in a little bit more on the background of John Munch and what makes him such a cultural icon, and Richard Belzer's contribution to that role over in our pop culture reference segment.
But there's a new noise on the horizon? How many different noises are we going to run into in this news segment of ours?
I keep calling the button guy, and he's like, dude, you gotta stop calling me. And I'm like, sorry, you gotta install another one. This one's big and red, and it's got a white N on it.
And it sounds like, da-dong, over and over again, maybe. We'll see what I come up with later.
We didn't talk about this beforehand, but it's a Netflix nuisance, everybody!
Netflix? Oh, God! Oh, jeez! Why do I always sound like I'm on fire? God!
Well, Netflix, it's gone the way of so many things, so many streaming services. The bubble, we've been talking about Netflix going under and raising prices and da-da-da, but they've gone the way of HBO Max, and they have actually started pulling their own content off of their streaming service. Notably, Arrested Development, including seasons 4 and 5, which Netflix itself produced off of their streaming service.
What a waste. My God. I remember such excitement. I was always an Arrested Development fan. I watched my parents' DVDs of the first 3 seasons when I was growing up, and I always loved it. And it was such a big deal when their revival was happening on Netflix. And I mean, love it or hate it, season 4, I at least loved that remix a lot more than the original. And I am so sad to see that this is another one of the mega streaming services sacrifices to nothing. It's good content from good actors, very funny stuff that's just going to be gone forever, pretty much.
I mean, I'm sure they're pulling it to license it to Hulu or something. I mean, Arrested Development, they're not going to pull for a tax write-off. People are watching Arrested Development still. But it's just such a shame that no matter where you go, you're not going to be able to know what streaming service a first-party streaming service series is on.
Yeah, it's confusing and sad, and I mean, will it still say will it be like a semi-Netflix original then bumped up with a semi-Hulu original? It's so many different things.
I'm assuming the Netflix production company logo stays at the front just like it normally would, but yeah, it's a very strange decision, especially because that was one of the first series that got revived like this, which is so common now. But it was also back when Netflix was really hot and they were, House of Cards and Orange is the New Black were
Yeah.
hit shows, and we were like, wow, Netflix is going to take Arrested Development and bring it back because we need more Arrested Development. And then it ended up being, the first real Netflix disappointment, which we've gotten very used to.
Yeah, I'm sure this isn't the last Netflix nuisance that we're gonna have to cover on this show. I think it's a House of Cards itself just collapsing, and I'm sad that Arrested Development is like the first thing that's getting the chopping block here. I mean, it goes to show that attitude at Netflix of like, if this isn't the next Stranger Things, we're canceling it, we're cutting it. People are getting, wrapping up your show 5 seasons earlier than planned. We're getting rid of it. It's very sad.
Then again, the more of their stuff that they take off their streaming service and license to other people, the more likely I am to just cancel my Netflix subscription.
You know what? That's a good point. Honestly, because I love Arrested Development, but if I could just get it anywhere else now, that's probably what I'm going to be doing.
But there is some more unfortunate Netflix news here, and I'll let you talk about this, Seamus, because I know you're the one who's crestfallen about it, that the Gorillaz movie has been canceled at Netflix.
Well, crestfallen is an interesting way to put it, because I think if you listen back to whatever ancient episode where we talked about this movie getting greenlit at Netflix, I fully said that it was going to get canceled before it came out. I'm pretty sure I had no hope at all. This is just another in the graveyard of like the Adult Swim Gorillaz show and the Gorillaz web series and the other movies that were canceled. I can't say that I'm surprised, I guess, especially because of how Netflix has been treating their animation department as of late. I guess I should have seen this coming even more, but I hope one day we'll get something, but as of now, it is an interesting bit of timing that this was announced less than a week before the new Gorillaz album drops. I think tomorrow, even as of the day of recording. So I have faith that we'll one day get something, but in the meantime, they've been putting out some pretty banger music that I cannot complain about at all. So Overall, I'm doing okay, and I hope it is at a better place eventually than Netflix.
At this point, they're gonna be lucky to get a Gorillaz Munch serial tie-in.
Exactly. They've got the lines recorded. I'm sure he works with everybody once.
Do you like Gorillaz Munch or Gorilla Munch? Do you like Gorilla Munch, Seamus? Is that a cereal you enjoy?
I was gonna say that sounds like a delicious cereal. I don't know what flavor it is, but it sounds
very
good.
I don't know either. It's kind of like Kix. They sold it at Trader Joe's when I was a kid.
I thought you were doing a bit. I didn't know this was a real cereal.
No, this is a real cereal. It's right next to the Panda Puffs, which Panda Puffs are peanut butter, which makes sense.
That does make sense.
Here, let me let you know. Hold on. What flavor is Gorilla Munch?
They're running out of time for the real product placement tie-in now that it's never going to come out.
It is crunchy corn balls. That's how it's advertised.
That is not an appetizing setting cereal, Garrett. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know.
It's good. I liked it when the milk would saturate them just enough that some of it would be soggy, but some of it would be like hard and like it would like almost like suction, like the holes in the cereal would almost like suction cup to the inside of your mouth.
You are an absolute anomaly, Garrett Strother. There's at least one listener who's like eating this cereal listening to this episode and be like, yeah, I totally get it.
So yeah, coming soon to a Trader Joe's near you, Gorillaz Munch.
And not coming to Netflix anymore, Gorillaz movie, just to be clear. If anyone was confused about the Gorilla talk, that is the facts.
I think Gorilla Talk sounds a little bit more like ooh.
Gorilla Talk is our other podcast where we debate different exhibits at zoos, gorillas, pieces of music, cereal brands,
And every single one of them is recorded live in a rainforest cafe.
I wish. Do they even exist anymore? I only knew of the one in Chicago, and I miss it dearly.
There was the one downtown by the Rock and Roll McDonald's, and then there was the one at the Woodfield Mall in Schaumburg, which also closed.
Oh, sadness. I miss it.
There's one at the Mall of America. We could go there.
Minnesota? Is that where that is?
Yeah, Minneapolis.
All right, there's a road trip right there to the Rainforest Cafe.
On the way. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Oh.
But anyway, this isn't a gorilla cast.
Wait, we're talking about gorillas? We're talking about Detective Munch? Gorilla Munch.
Yeah, man, I thought that's the bit we were doing. What?
That wasn't the bit that I was doing until just now. I just realized that we were talking about Munch.
I can't understand. I don't know if you're screwing with me right now. That is the weirdest thing that has ever happened. Right over your gorilla head, Garrett. Jesus.
I do love gorillas.
The band, the animal, the cereal?
The animal. The other things are fine, too.
The other things are fine. Oh.
You know what I like even more than I like gorillas, Seamus?
What's that, Garrett?
Ants.
Oh, ants. Oh, hell yeah. The best promo of any movie of all time. Oh, let's get into our main segment, the Antman movies, before we talk more about ants. That is still hamboning with my chest and knee. Ugh.
For today's main segment, we're going to be talking about the films Antman and Antman and the Wasp, in preparation for the upcoming movie that Seamus and I will not be seeing, Antman and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I always enjoy revisiting these movies, Garrett. I think they're some of the most fun MCU movies. I think they're easy to watch. They're not so heavy, even though the second one kind of tries to be heavy a little bit and doesn't really get there. I love Paul Rudd with my whole heart. I don't know if we've ever talked about it. Yeah, okay. We're on the same Rudd page here. He's great in everything, and I think specifically as Scott Lang, he's got a great energy to him. For as many characters that are supposed to have this kind of like quippy energy, he's just so naturally funny in these movies that it's hard to not just give it to him automatically, you know?
I think that I've always been like, yeah, the Ant-Man movies are fun distractions. And now, in an era where Marvel hasn't been putting out anything I've liked in years, it's amazing how much that first Ant-Man, rewatching it for this show, which I don't think I'd seen since the movie theater. I think I saw it twice in the movie theater, and then that's it. That first Ant-Man is great.
Absolutely.
It's not like, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but I think it has, one, actually vibrant colors, which is kind of crazy. I was like, man, that Baskin-Robbins shirt is really pink. I was like,
the red pops.
I was like, shouldn't you be putting like a gray filter over all this? They have their own personality, and even though, like you said, Ant-Man and the Wasp gets a little bit more into stuff that I don't care for, that I suspect Quantumania leans even further into, the stuff that works for me in Ant-Man is largely still present in Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's just less of it, and the story isn't as streamlined.
Yeah, I definitely feel it. When I look back on Ant-Man and the Wasp, I feel like it's just like one big blob of a movie, like timeline-wise, plot-wise. I feel like everything is just kind of whatever. The heist stuff in the first one is so tight, if not even a little light on the heist stuff. Like I almost wanted a little more.
There should be more heist stuff, because I think people, especially in like 2015, the era that Ant-Man came out, that was, I feel like, the height of people being like, Marvel's really cool because they don't just do superhero movies, they do blank, but it's a superhero movie. And I feel like the thing I've heard that the most about is Ant-Man is a heist movie, but it's also a superhero movie. And I wish that they stuck with the heist stuff more, because the heist, I agree, at the beginning of the first Ant-Man is very solid.
Totally.
And I think part of the real appeal to me of both of the Ant-Man movies is they feel really scrappy. They feel like, okay, we have three things that we can do. We can have things get big, we can have things get small, and we can use the ants, and that's it. And I think those are very refreshing superhero mechanics in a Marvel world where it's all just punching and flying and more punching. And
you need a thing? Tony Stark's got a thing that can make it, you know?
Exactly.
Like, everything is within the grasp of all of the main characters because they're friends with either a god who can just do a thing or the rich Iron Man, and he can do it for you with no problems.
So even though the heist that happens, without getting too into spoilers, at the end of the first Ant-Man, it's still, even though I wish it were more heisty, and I wish it were more involved, I wish we were leading more into the Ocean's 11 vibe that they kind of have at the beginning of this movie, I really am refreshed by, we're still doing things very differently than the other Marvel movies do. We're still really taking a distinct swing at a story and at a sequence.
Yeah, I always... And it makes me want to watch Quantumania a little more, looking back on these movies, rewatching them for this episode, because it's hard for me, because when they go wrong in these movies, they're never ever really going that wrong. It's more of like an absence of something that they're already doing that you want more of, or a little bit of expansion. But I don't know. It's hard to think that this new one is gonna kind of scratch that same itch as like low-level, bare bones. Like you said, it's Ant-Man. Sometimes the Wasp is there. We have the two suits or whatever. It feels like it might be going off the walls a little more than what I like these characters, their situations to be in.
Well, and I'm sure the majority of the people listening to this have probably seen Quantumania by the time they listen to it, so we're gonna sound like dummies. From what I hear, like, Luis and the rest of the XCon guys are not in Quantumania.
What?
And neither is Judy Greer or Bobby Cannavale. And I'm like,
kidding.
What's the point of having an Ant-Man movie? Because those are the characters that I love. I don't care about the quantum realm. I don't care about the science.
Yeah.
I barely care about Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne. Barely.
Yeah,
I care about the actors
exactly
more than I care about the characters. And I mean, Evangeline Lilly, all the anti-vax, whatever. You know,
that's
the
MCU's at it again, huh?
I liked her on Lost, and so
that's why. Okay, that's why I don't know her, and that's why you like her. Got it.
Yeah, correct. But I like the lighthearted, family-oriented, kind of saccharine nature of. We've got the family unit that's it's non-traditional, but it's still sweet and tight-knit and together in Judy Greer and Bobby Cannavale, whose name I can never say right the first time I try to, and little Cassie Lang. I like that group. And I think the thing that everybody liked the first time that first movie came out was Luis, because Michael Peña's hilarious and he's so good.
Funny.
And I think one of the things that gives these movies the personality that they have that set them apart from the other Marvel movies is the playfulness of his little tangents and the kinds of remarks that he makes that aren't the type of humor that Marvel usually goes with, and have a directorial flair, which is a weird thing to say about Peyton Reed, who doesn't seem to know anything about blocking, which is probably, it's a mean thing to say, but I don't think these movies are shot particularly well, but they make up for it with the inventiveness of their sequences and charm of their characters, except for Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne.
Right, yeah, unfortunately indeed. I love the ex-con friend group. I feel like I am very sad to learn that we're probably not going to be seeing them in this next one. That is about. I was ready to see Luis try to like recap things from the regular world in the quantum realm to like a weird bug monster guy. You know,
that's what you need. That's Ant-Man, but also I don't care about spending time in the quantum realm. Every time they're in the quantum realm in Ant-Man and the Wasp, which we're tackling these basically together, I think.
Oh yeah.
I snooze. Wake me up. Bring me back. Ant-Man should be making Pez dispensers big and batteries big and cars small and putting them in your Hot Wheels case. That's Ant-Man. And I don't care about whatever's going on down in the quantum realm with your weird Dune ripoff world. And, I want the fun. I don't want the world-ending Avengers-level threat that they're cramming into Quantumania.
Because I was so excited about like the Kang stuff when Loki was coming out, and we were kind of getting the bits and pieces of it. But now that it's all at once now, I find myself caring a whole lot less about it, and that's sad because this is a podcast where we like Loki, we like Jonathan Majors big time.
We do like Jonathan Majors.
This is a Jonathan Majors cast. But
it really kind of is. We talk about him a lot.
He's in a lot of stuff. He's good at a lot of stuff for sure. But like,
Creed 3 out next week.
Oh yeah, there it is. But yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. This seems like too big of a thing to be zeroing in on. Leave it for Loki. Loki's all about the weird Kang stuff for now.
Totally.
I don't know.
I'm like, just leave me the one thing that I was, the one little piece of fun that was left in this universe. Give it back to me, please, because like I just don't care, and I want to care because I like these movies and I like Ant-Man, and I think that I alluded to this not only during earlier in our main segment here, but also during our intro to the show, which is I call it Ant-Man 2, and I think this sounds really bad, but I think I would be less resistant to calling it Ant-Man and the Wasp if I cared about the Wasp more, because I don't.
I know, I get it. I mean, it's not your fault, because I feel like she barely gets to even do it. Even with her name in the title as the second lead, I feel like she doesn't get many interesting things to do in that second movie.
And I feel like she doesn't have a personality. Her personality is, like, to be cold. And, she has conflict with characters. Like, she's, like, mad at her dad for not telling her about her mom and stuff like that. But she's not, like, Scott has so many little quirks that make him compelling and charming and, seem like a fully formed character, like so many of the other characters. I would even argue Judy Greer has better characterization than Hope does, which is kind of crazy because Judy Greer's barely in these movies.
Yeah, that is... You're not wrong. I would like to maybe get into spoilers because I feel like a lot of the family stuff...
Family,
exactly. When Vin Diesel shows up, we gotta give the spoilers for the Vin Diesel cameo.
Vin Diesel should have been MODOK, probably.
Vin Diesel should have been Thanos, bro. He should have been, like, the big guy.
Any CG guy that's not Rocket Raccoon in the Marvel movies should just be Vin Diesel. I
always forget that he's Groot. And then I'm like, what should he be in the MCU? He should be something huge, right?
Yo, soy Groot.
God. All right. Well, what do you say? Spoilers?
Do we want to... Is there wrap-up thoughts for Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, non-spoil? I guess if you've listened this far, you probably have seen these movies. And also, what is there to spoil, really? So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's just break the dam.
Let's do it. What are you thinking? What are you thinking first? I guess let's slap them together, like you said. There's maybe less to talk about the second one. I feel like I wish there was more big Ant-Man, and we only get him a couple times. Not even in one of his movies, and then very little amount of big Ant-Man in Ant-Man 2, and that makes me sad.
I don't really... Big Ant-Man is not as interesting to me as Little Ant-Man, so I don't really mind that.
I've always been a big Ant-Man guy. I've always said that, Garrett. You know this about me. I'm always a big Ant-Man dude.
I do know that, actually.
That's like the part of Infinity War that drops my jaw is when he's like punching stuff as big Ant-Man, and I'm all about that.
You mean Civil War or Endgame, one of the two that he's actually in. And
Endgame is what I'm thinking of. The big clash where he's just lumbering through a battlefield as Big Ant-Man. That is what I'm there for.
I sat next to you during Endgame. I remember when he got big in Endgame and you were like, yes!
Oh, dude, I love it. I love it so much.
I do like it. I just don't think that it's as funny as a lot of the small stuff. Like, the sound design when he gets small and mice sound like rhinoceroses.
yeah.
And, the little tiny car motors that sound so small.
The stampede of ant feet and stuff that is just, I love the little ant relationship stuff, but it makes my skin crawl, the ant stuff. It reminds me of like the Crystal Skull.
Really, I most of the time really find it charming. Like, I love at the end of the first Ant-Man when all the flying ants come in to evacuate the worker ants, and they're like, yeah, we're all in this together, guys. Like,
well, I mean, they grow on me for sure, but then, like, when we get down to, like, the giant ant that they keep as a pet at the end of the first one, I'm like, no, thank you. This is the worst. This sucks.
But I think that is so well set up by Cassie loving ugly, gross things. I think that's so funny at the end when she pets it and gives it some food under the table.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's cute, and I love little Cassie Lang, but I don't know, it creeps me out still. I still shed a tear when named ants get assassinated like mid-flight. It makes me so sad.
Anthony with that wing.
R.I.P. Bro, that's so sad.
I remember when my buddy Sean, who was not by any means up on Marvel stuff, was like, we were there were a few guys that were all gonna go see Ant-Man and the Wasp together while I was home for the summer, and Sean was gonna come, and he's like, I haven't seen Ant-Man or Infinity War, do I need to see those? And I was like, yeah, you probably need to see those before you go see Ant-Man and the Wasp. Which, that's another reason I think Ant-Man and the Wasp feels kind of weird, and it feels better now than it did when it came out, is because it, the biggest, most life-changing, dark thing that's ever happened in Marvel happened, and then we were like, time for an Ant-Man movie.
Like 4 months later, it was so soon.
It was so soon. But I remember him texting me when Anthony died and being like, tell me why the death that has affected me most in a Marvel movie is this flying ant.
Dude, it's tragic. That is truly tragic. He gets shot with a bullet, right? He just gets obliterated.
Corey Stoll shoots him with a bullet.
So absolutely tragic. Corey Stoll, though, love him. Crazy bad guy, give it to me in a small scale. Just make him a psychopath that zaps sheep. I'm into it.
Also, I remember him being really nothing in that movie, and not that he's not. I mean, not Corey Stoll's performance, just the character.
Whose name I can't even come up with, honestly.
Cross, it's Darren Cross.
Darren Cross. Evil guy. Which
is a bad name, and that's part of the problem. But honestly, I thought that his, it wasn't, again, it's I'm gonna say this a lot this episode, it wasn't a masterpiece, but it got the job done. Like, he has the rivalry with Hank, and he clearly kind of wants to sleep with Hope, and you could see the crazy going and building up in his brain, and I think it works. I do it really works, because Ant-Man understands a thing that no Marvel movies anymore understand, which is the plot of the superhero movie, if not good, should at least be serviceable to the point that it is a clothesline on which to hang entertainment, on which to hang sequences and jokes and characters that are fun and engaging to the audience, and as long as you can get from point A to point B in a satisfying manner, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It feels like when it drops off a little bit with the stuff with Hank and Hope, that I think we kind of both feel it kind of makes up for it with in my mind. I like that weird corporate rivalry, that like mentor-mentee bitterness that they kind of sneak in there character-wise for the old Yellow Jacket. But yeah, I don't know. I think that you're not wrong that it's just that is gone with the wind in a lot of that's probably why we're so tired of it all now. It feels like the stories themselves don't matter when in something like these movies, even the second one, which I'm sure we're going to talk about soon, like there are things we can work with story-wise that keep us engaged and at least like appreciating the merit behind it instead of just like the slog of what the modern stuff is.
Yeah, because, I mean, Ant-Man and the Wasp, which you just brought up, the bad guys, quote unquote, are compelling. I think they're interesting. I think they're right, which is part of the problem with that movie is, yeah, dude, like, she's messed up and she needs your equipment, and you guys are just like, nah. I mean, they should have asked for help probably before just trying to kill you, but... Sure,
but that lady was living in actual agony. That's a pretty... The whole, like, physical phasing thing, affliction is pretty dark, like, in the concepts of what Ant-Man movies bring to the table.
She does a really good job, I think, of making you feel that pain and like seeing how it drives her while remaining like really sympathetic, but but also menacing at the same time. Like, it's a really good balancing act that actor is carrying on really well. Lawrence Fishburne, kind of just a waste of Lawrence Fishburne. I hate to say it. He has nothing to do.
That's what I always think, is that they just, like, he could have been something entertaining even. He's just, like, a guy that they meet up with, like, twice.
I feel like when they wrote that character in, their intention was, and this is pure speculation, I have nothing to back this up, I feel like their intention was, this is a guy that we can, like, bring back in other movies like Skarsgård in the Thor movies, and he could just be like he could be our scientist guy, and he knows things about quantum and all the other stuff.
Everyone's a scientist who knows about quantum in this goddamn franchise.
Oh, it's annoying. It's just sad because it's nothing. And Lawrence Fishburne, I mean, he has the sympathy, which I like, that you can see how much he cares, but you can see the humanity of him, and that he's able to get through the one-dimensionality of his role a little bit because he is such a talented actor. And I will say, I remember seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp in the theater. Well, I remember seeing the original Ant-Man in the theater and kind of having this thought, but Ant-Man and the Wasp is the first time that I really remember being like, wow, that's young Michelle Pfeiffer, that's young Lawrence Fishburne, that's crazy they're in this movie.
Yeah, wait, didn't they do that with Michael Douglas too?
Yeah, they do it, I mean, but it just doesn't look as good as the other two, I don't
right,
think.
Okay.
Like, he looks a little bit more rubbery, and maybe that's partially because they're probably reusing some of the same assets from the first Ant-Man, where he looks a little rubbery. But, I mean, Lawrence Fishburne and Michelle Pfeiffer look so convincing. Especially Lawrence Fishburne, I think it looks like archive footage. Not that all three of them don't still look good, you know, but... That
probably helps with the whole process.
It probably helps. But it's just crazy how good that stuff looks. And, you know, maybe that's part of the reason they got somebody like Lawrence Fishburne, because they're like, we've got lots of archive footage from him around that time. Just like, I mean, the other time I remember thinking that around that same time is Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Where Kurt Russell's young, and it looks like young Kurt Russell, and we're like, man, that's young Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I think that is, I mean, one of the few shining things, because like we kind of mentioned up top, too, one of the things that I remember most about that second Ant-Man movie is the waste of Walton Goggins, who should have also been a huge character in the MCU that would have gotten me to come back every movie, you know?
Walton Goggins Silver Surfer?
Yeah. Honestly, Walton Goggins MODOK. Put that big face on a pair of tiny arms and legs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jason Alexander's a bad choice for MODOK, personally. But, again, I'm not seeing the movie yet, so I can't speak to it. I mean, this movie's plot is just... There's 3 plots, and I'm not invested in any of them. And at least 2 of them are kind of compelling. There's 3 plots. Because there's kind of... I was going to say there's kind of 4 plots, but the trying to get Janet out of the quantum realm and Scott being under house arrest are the same plot, really. And of all of the plots, the least compelling of them is the Walton Goggins stuff, which I think that could have been remedied, and I'm not the first person to say this, and I think you and I have probably already had this conversation before, is it should have been Sam Rockwell's Justin Hammer, and that would have solved a lot of this movie's problems.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we've talked about that, but that makes complete sense to me. That would have been a very similar feel, and then you could have saved our boy Walton for something a little more meaty.
And that way, if you have it be not that I need, because I think one of the pleasures of the first Ant-Man is how not connected it is to the other Marvel movies. Because I was watching it last night and I was like, oh yeah, there's like Falcons in this. We can just like
that is almost always a genuine surprise to me. I mean, it's not like really a surprise, but I've got that same feeling of like, wow, this is the one real big cameo, and it feels like a real big cameo because there's like nothing else outside of this Ant-Man bubble that really worms its way in.
And that's part of what makes, we'll get back to Justin Hammer in a second, I promise. Okay. That's part of what makes that end credits tease so interesting and so exciting, is that Ant-Man has been so isolated this whole movie. There's been like passing references to the Avengers and that one sequence with Falcon, and then you have this dour, serious post-credit scene with Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and it's like, hey, I know a guy that can help us out. And that's so fun and exciting and cool. And I mean, I think just as fun and exciting and cool is the Luis ending the movie.
And he said, yes.
And he said,
Love it.
yeah. Probably the best ending line
it's so
of
good.
any Marvel property. But yeah, that stuff works because this tone is so light and fun and separate from the rest of Marvel that it's more exciting when it gets folded in, which I think that they have lost sight of that making things more connected and making them more tonally similar, it loses the novelty of like, oh, the characters that are different are together now. Because Thor and Captain America the First Avenger, those are such different movies in such completely different worlds with such completely different looks and tones, and then you put those two characters together and it's fun and exciting because it's new. And I think Ant-Man captures that same excitement even when you get to Endgame. I think weirdly when Ant-Man shows up, he's still been kept separate enough even though he was in Civil War, but his tone is so different. You're like, oh yeah, like this is weird, you know, when he's sitting there talking to Tony Stark about time travel. And you're like, this is exciting, you know, to have that team up moment. So anyway, to get back to, not that I want these movies to be more interconnected because I like that Ant-Man kind of stands on its own terms. I think that having Justin Hammer be there would have made it feel like it was part of a larger kind of conflict, ongoing thing in the MCU, and made that story not feel so incomplete. It just feels like, you know, there's kind of like how the 10 Rings guys are there in the first Ant-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like a side thing. It's not really important that they're there. They're just a minor source of conflict. I feel like it could have been a little bit more akin to that, except with Justin Hammer.
I totally agree. That would have plussed that up a lot, I think. And a missed opportunity. Do we know what happened? Wasn't there a short with Justin Hammer at some point after things? And
the All Hail the King. Oh my goodness, I hate this. There is a short that I have no idea. It was back when they were still doing the Marvel one-shots, and I don't know what Blu-ray it was on, so it's on Disney+. You can go watch it, where it's the fake Mandarin from Iron Man 3 in jail.
Trevor Slattery, Sir Trevor Slattery.
You know, you remember more about that movie than those movies that he's in, plural, because he's in the 10 Rings, of course.
Of course.
And he's in prison, and he's like, you know, the Mandarin's looking for you. He's not happy that you're whatever, and I don't know what else happens in that. Really,
they kidnap him, I think, at the end.
Do they? Oh yeah, because then he's with.
It's like a weird mockumentary style. Like they're like interviewing him, and then it turns out the interviewer is actually part of the real 10 Rings.
Yes. And at the very end of that short, there is a like one-off shot of Justin Hammer in the same prison.
So he could have escaped. He could have escaped in time to do Ant-Man 2.
Problem. He's been in prison since Iron Man 2. How many years ago was that?
Oh,
that was
dude, so many other people have escaped prison since then. He's a rich, powerful guy.
Yeah.
Have a robot do it, man.
I mean, for all you know, like maybe the prison he was in, you know, everybody got dusted, Justin Hammer got dusted, and then they bulldozed the prison because they didn't need so many prisons anymore because so many people were dead.
Dude, that is a genius way to reincorporate characters that have been, you know, swept away. That is genius.
So, you know, Marvel, if you're looking for somebody to write the Justin Hammer spin-off movie, I will do it.
I'd watch a Justin Hammer show, as dumb as that sentence is.
Other than like Loki season 2, like stuff that I'm already invested in, I don't know what it would take to get me to watch another Marvel show, to be honest.
Friendship with Secret Invasion over New Best Friend Loki season 2? You over Secret Invasion?
I thought Secret Invasion was a movie.
I thought it was a show.
No, you're right, it is a show. No, I'll watch Secret Invasion. Stupid Marvel.
Hey, that's what we said about Moon Knight, and I don't think either of us finished it.
Well, it was bad, so...
Yeah, I wanted to like that show so much.
It's not, you know... I mean, Secret Invasion, who knows? I might get 2 episodes into it just like I got into Moon Knight and be like...
You only got 2 episodes in?
This is not worth my time. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Oh, good lord.
I don't care. I mean, Oscar Isaac, you're my boy, and...
That's what I'm saying. It should be good. Moon Knight is an interesting character.
But, I mean... We haven't talked about this on air, and it really shouldn't be during the Ant-Man episode, but when else would it be?
Yeah, when else? What else?
I didn't like the way it wrote the DID. I did not think that worked well. I thought that his performance was fine, but I didn't think like the core conflict was really engaging. Kind of like Walton Goggins. I was like, this is a waste of Ethan Hawke. I was like, I'm not.
Yeah, dude. What a shame. What an absolute shame.
But yeah, I will never finish that show. I will never
That is a
never
promise.
finish that show.
This is a declaration on Pop Culture Reference.
And if I do, unsubscribe. Like, the second you hear me say that, this show, done.
Hey man, marathons happen every day in this country, Garrett. You don't know what our twisted minds will come up with.
Seamus, I'm not going to say we'll never do a Marvel marathon, but
it would be so uncomfortable.
part of the joy of our marathons are that one usually like kind of like overlooked in one capacity or another.
Have we not overlooked this entire phase of content, Garrett?
We maybe have. I don't know if the world has.
Maybe not.
I don't know. I mean, I was going to say, I think Ant-Man's underperforming, but also it's the number one movie in the world right now. But also, what's this competition? What's this competition?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
The Titanic re-release that you and I never went to go see because in the Winter Storm prevented me from going without you. So
I can definitively say I'd rather go see Titanic 3D than Ant-Man 3. You know, I think I still have more interest in that. I'm more interested in seeing it after we've been talking about it for a minute now. I guess I'll say if they can bring home some of the elements that we enjoyed from these first two,
that's the thing. I'm not seeing any evidence in the promotion or from what I've heard from other people that they do, because like we talked about, I'm more interested in the characters and the novelty of doing Ant-Man shenanigans in the real world than I am in the quantum realm or whatever's going on with the Avengers level Kang threat. I'll say this, as good as and I don't know all the behind the scenes drama about recasting Cassie for Quantumania. Because like the first article I read was like, no, she chose to like go to college instead of being in Quantumania, but then I read that no, they didn't even offer her the role before they gave it to Catherine. I don't know. So I'm not informed. So that's not what I'm talking about. And I think that I think her name is like Emma Furman or something. I don't even know who plays her in Endgame. Does a great job in Endgame. I think that is one of the best parts of Endgame. I think is that scene where Scott gets back to the house.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And despite all that, something that I was thinking while watching these movies last night is that little girl looks like Catherine Newton. Like she has face. She has like the correct face shape as Catherine Newton. So I think that's pretty good casting. And I like Catherine Newton. I thought she was really good in Freaky, which I don't think you saw.
I did not, but I mean, hey, this character is definitely gonna become a larger part of things now that she's roped into the Ant-Man verse. So
it's the Young Avengers.
Yeah, oh yeah, for
thing.
sure.
Yeah,
she's gonna get hit with a quantum blast in the quantum realm and get some kind of dumb. She's gonna be suddenly a character that's been in the comics forever.
Yeah, and I don't make Luis an Avenger, dude. I don't.
Well, you know my headcanon / stolen Reddit theory that there's a couple shots in Endgame in the big battlefield where they cut to small Ant-Man and then they cut to a wide and there's big Ant-Man. And my thing that I cling on to is Scott called up his boy and he threw him in the suit to be like, all right, we need one big guy at least to get up in there. I mean, and Luis had to step up.
Michael Douglas says that he can't get in the suit anymore because it hurts, because his little brain can't take it.
Exactly. There's got to be another Ant-Man. Luis is Ant-Man.
Could be. I mean, I remember being very bummed, not that movie needed more characters, but being very bummed that Luis was not in Endgame, even though his van obviously was.
I mean, could you imagine his little Luis freak out when he sees all of the different people that he knows as like celebrity superheroes? It would have been so fun.
Because my favorite part of Ant-Man and the Wasp, like definitively the best part to me, is the Luis car chase.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Terrific when you see him get the Hot Wheel out of the little case. He's one of the few characters where I actually still feel the thrill of like, oh, this is like superhero stuff. This is really cool, because when everybody else is so nonchalant and quippy about everything, Luis is excited.
Exactly. He's having some Ant-Man fun. Or, he's having some fun in there,
yeah,
you know?
He's having tons of fun.
But you're right. It's like a weird symptom of like there's so much in this universe, everything is probably based around superhumans and gods and aliens and everything. There's a werewolf in there, I think, at this point, and there's
I didn't see that. I actually do want to watch that.
I heard it was actually pretty solid, and it's only like 45 minutes, I think, is another thing I heard. So that's probably worth the 45 minutes. But yeah, to have Luis just be beaming at all the crazy things happening around him, it's good to have in these movies that I'm sad is probably fully absent, unless there's, I mean, not even an after credits scene in Quantumania, right?
I haven't seen it, but I don't know. Regardless, Luis should be a big enough part of the movie that he's in the trailer. Regardless of whether or not he's technically in the movie, he should be in the movie more, probably.
Agreed.
Is my review of the movie I haven't seen. And
yeah, I mean, well, yeah, this isn't the Quantumania episode, which we'll never do, but I'm resistant to marathon because I just don't think that would be enjoyable for anybody involved. It wouldn't,
but I do think that you and I will probably, before the next Avengers movie, do like a wrap-up of things that we didn't bother to cover on this show and be like, we liked Quantumania fine because we watched it at home and we didn't care. And
yeah, I was able to scroll on Reddit for the 10 minutes that were dumb. And
there
were
only 10 minutes that were dumb.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
That's wishful thinking. God help us.
But yeah, I mean, I also like the Baba, like they're actually scared of ghosts, like the Baba Yaga guy.
That is very. I like that. I like that a lot. So again, everything comes back to like the human characters, the friends, the family dynamic that I honestly love so much of. Like, there's obviously tension in the first movie, but by the time we get to all the subsequent Scott with his daughter and ex-wife and stuff, like it was all very wholesome and enjoyable, and they didn't need to add in all of the extra conflict when they were able to very interestingly resolve it in that first movie. I don't know. We didn't talk about Jimmy Woo. Jimmy Woo's up in here.
Oh,
Agent.
He's fun. I like him.
Great opening where he's trying to be intimidating but cannot find it in himself to not maybe go out to dinner with Paul Rudd. It's great.
Unfortunately, I think like he's a necessary part of that movie that, like, not that I think he should be in it more, but I think it showcases how much they need to cut from that movie, or how much more they need to streamline that movie, that he is such an afterthought to me when he should be one of the main sources of, like, okay, Scott needs to get back to the house tension, that he's barely an afterthought to me.
Yeah, it really should be like a sub Catch Me If You Can, but it's Jimmy Woo, so he's finding it very difficult to catch him doing things kind of
that
subplot.
Would be very funny. That would have been a way more interesting subplot than Walt Goggins, unfortunately.
Whatever his goons are doing, getting beaten up in a fight scene that is very unmemorable.
The True Serum is fine. That's a fun bit, but it's only fun because it's Luis. It's not fun because of any other reason.
Exactly. What were you at all when you first saw Ant-Man and the Wasp? That stinger at the end. They kind of try to do a similar thing of like, it's a pretty decently wholesome and funny adventure, and then they hit you with something hard at the end. But the second Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know, we've talked about how it's kind of got its massive list of problems that could have been cleaned up, but that little dust snap ending where we set up Ant-Man stuck in the quantum realm himself. What did you think of that?
I wish that Luis were there getting snapped so that I would care that any of those characters were gone.
Do we even know if he got snapped?
That's the thing. We have no idea.
That's why he should be in the third one. God, somebody should be recapping to him in a fast voice what happened while he was snapped.
That's
and he has
so fun. Like one of the the Baba Yaga guy.
yeah.
Taking that up. Once you put a dime in him, you gotta let the song play out. You know.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Luis is, I think, actually genuinely one of my favorite characters in any of these movies. Like I'm gonna stake top 5 characters in any of these movies for me.
Everyone?
Yeah.
That's pretty high up there, but he's
in a franchise with 200 characters. Yeah.
When a lot of those characters do end up just being like if they're only, or one of their only merits is they're good, they're fun in a fight scene, then it starts to drop hard when we're looking at characters with personalities, you know?
I mean, I might have to hedge it a little bit because I forgot the Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy movies exist, but
that rounds out a good amount of your top, I'm sure.
Because it's like Captain America, M'Baku, I guess. Like,
interesting. No, I guess that makes sense.
How much of that's Winston Duke? I don't know, but he's
probably a lot of it, my man.
But yeah, or I guess like Killmonger would probably be up there for me. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's pretty hard for me to come up with characters I like more than Luis. It's a pretty short. I don't even think I like M'Baku more than Luis, to be honest. Like, I was just trying to think of top.
Oh, okay.
MCU characters that aren't Guardians, because again, the Guardians, like you said, really are like a whole list.
Of course. I feel like we need to have a conversation between Luis and Korg, and maybe
that'd be pretty good.
A Luis and Groot conversation might be pretty entertaining.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's they do that joke kind of a lot with Groot, but it works every time.
The talkative character with Groot, yeah.
I like the idea if Luis could learn to speak Groot. Again, not that I want the Ant-Man characters more connected to the larger universe, but
Luis should be a stowaway on the next Guardians ship when they visit Earth, is what you're saying, I think, right?
That would be... They should have kidnapped him instead of Kevin Bacon.
That's what I'm saying.
That would be... He has Kevin Bacon in the back of the ship, and he's explaining where he fits in. He's like, so I'm friends with an Avenger, but he's not really an Avenger anymore, but now he kind of is.
It's like, so my friend Scotty was doing this espionage stuff, right? And it goes all the way back.
And also, okay, that's something I want to talk about. This isn't really a problem with the movie because it doesn't matter, because again, it understands that entertaining me is more important than the origin story. Okay, so he has a master's degree, and he was doing, like, how does he know so much about crime, even though he was working a decent job up until he Robin Hooded all the millions back? So was he a criminal before he was working a decent job too? Because there's a line where they're like, every time the going gets tough, you just revert back to crime. So apparently, like, that's something that he's had a problem with before, even though he has a master's degree and a cushy job, where obviously he had access to, or at least, hacking experience enough to get access to the millions of dollars that they stole from customers. And I don't know. And he knows about safes, like, really a lot about safes.
Yeah, it seems like they have a specifically mysterious Ocean's Scotty's 11 style past that don't give any Disney execs ideas that we need another, like, prequel show or something, because they'll do it, and they will. And
if they could commit to actually being a heist, maybe I'd care.
What would he be heisting that wouldn't mess up the contained world of the first Ant-Man? It's like they're going to make him bump into every character that he ends up doing movies with.
That's true. That's very, very true. Yeah, never mind.
There's no room. There's no wiggle room, sadly. But and that's also very sad, because Paul Rudd could just play his younger self if they did that, and there would be no CGI needed, and it would have been perfect.
I think it's actually kind of funny, because I think Judy Greer is like the female Paul Rudd, where she has looked the same for 30 years.
And there they are together, making the ageless child that ages so fast in this franchise.
She does, because honestly, I didn't see them very close together. Again, I saw them really when they were out in the theaters. Mm-hmm. She grows up a lot between the two movies, like, because she's so young in that first one.
For sure, yeah, very much so.
And then obviously,
time jump and all that.
Yeah. So yeah, Ant-Man they're good. They're just good, and even the second one that's bad is good, because when it came out, I was like, this is low tier Marvel, and now I'm like, this is kind of higher tier
This
Marvel.
Is mid-tier Marvel, at least.
At least mid-tier Marvel. And isn't it crazy how fast things like that change? Because it doesn't seem like that movie's that old, but it's like 5 years old now, right? Like,
yeah, dude, it's pretty old now. It's like I said, probably would have gotten fully forgotten by the masses if not for the direct setup for Scott's role in Endgame.
But I also think that's the joy of it. The fact that it could be forgotten is actually one of its greatest strengths. The fact that Ant-Man is so often left out of the conversation by die-hard Marvel fans, good, because like that shows that there's something else going on there. You know, it's got its own world, it's got its own personality. I know I keep using that phrase.
No, but it's true, and that's why I'm silently shaking my head thinking again about how Quantumania is going to be probably not the last insanity that the Ant-Man specific movies are going to just have to do now that they've broken that dam.
Well, actually, Seamus, they keep teasing in the trailer that Ant-Man's gonna die, so maybe Ant-Man dies.
Could you imagine if they killed off Paul Rudd in this movie? I would go see it today.
Are you excited for Ghost to be in Thunderbolts? Is that something you're excited about?
Maybe. It hasn't even crossed my mind once that she might be in Quantumania, which is probably maybe the hook of their whole quantum research, but like it never even once crossed my mind.
Oh yeah, because at the end they're like, we're getting quantum juice for Miss Girl to
they lock her in the Snow White chamber to sleep it off, and they're doing other things for so long between then and Quantumania.
Yeah, I wonder what. Is that the hook of? That would be really sad and actually kind of compelling, actually, because you know her powers come from the thing that is painful to her, that she's got that debilitating illness, essentially. That what if the snap happens, right, and Ant-Man's gone for 5 years and there's no quantum anything, and so her powers come back, but at the she finally was free, and then the second the quantum realm's open and they're able to mine the stuff back and everything, Thanos snaps half of the world's population away, and she is back to this awful pain that she's lived with for her entire life, and back under the government's thumb with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that I would love if they went that angle, because again, they haven't even talked about her in any movie. I guess Ant-Man hasn't really been in many speaking parts of these movies or shows or anything in a while, but
hey,
forgotten.
The whole gang was standing at Tony Stark's funeral because if there's one thing I know about that family is how much they love the Starks.
Yeah, the Pyms and the Starks, they've always been pretty tight-knit. Leads to one of my favorite stupid throwaways in Civil War, though, of like, Hank always told me never to trust a Stark. And she's like, I don't even know who you are, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I don't like Civil War, but I do like Ant-Man in Civil War.
Yes. Ant-Man is the shining diamond of Civil War.
He really is. And someday we'll probably talk about that movie on this podcast for some reason.
And it'll be pop culture reference Civil War, because I think I like it a lot more than you do.
Yes, that's actually one of my least favorite Marvel movies, period, is Captain America Civil War.
Don't want to spoil anything for the, 500 episodes from now when we get around to it, but I like it less when I see it again, if I'm being honest. But
that is the exact problem with Civil War. Is the first time you watch it, you're like, dude, this is Civil War.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
And it's like, you gotta watch it with your parents. You're like, oh, boy, we're still doing this, huh?
It's long, huh? When's the airport scene? You just watch the airport scene on YouTube. I don't know.
There's no stakes in this movie because everybody's quippy? Okay, sure.
Hey, Rhodey gets paralyzed, dog. I don't know if you remember that.
He should die.
He should have, but it's not in Cheadle's contract.
That's nothing against Don Cheadle, but if they wanted to make that movie work, he should die.
Yeah, because he gets his legs back by the end of the movie. It's dumb.
It's dumb.
I don't know.
Marvel's dumb.
This isn't the Civil War cast, Garrett.
Marvel is dumb, but Ant-Man is a shining beacon of hope in the darkness of Marvel that it's been consumed, unfortunately, by the shroud that continues to cover this desolate cinematic wasteland.
Well, we'll see if our feelings change when we watch Quantumania and Ant-Man runs into Loki at the TVA, which is secretly in the quantum realm, and they make it all have to connect. And then who
would fit really well in an Ant-Man is Owen Wilson from Loki.
I was going to say Eugene Cordero from Loki, thank you very much. Him and Luis together.
That would be really good.
He's recapping to Eugene Cordero the entire world because he has no memories of it.
They have to do like Antman's in his quantum shenanigans alter the space-time continuum, and they have to pull in everybody for questioning. And so it's Luis talking to Eugene Cordero.
Okay. Real quick before we have to move on, but it's like 30 Luises from 30 splintered timelines,
Yes!
and they're trying to explain to each other what happened to each other when they got.
And they all have like funny, like one has one arm and one has like a weird costume on.
Quickly cast Lady Louise and let's get the hell out of here.
Okay, Lady Louise.
Who's very fast speaking.
Fast speaking. Does she she has to be Hispanic, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think so, right?
And she has to be about that age.
I don't know.
This is a hard
question, yeah.
Because it's a very specific role. But
you could just have him in a wig. I mean, there's nothing against that, I suppose. That's pretty
genuinely funny. Not that cross-dressing is inherently funny, but just the idea that Lady Louise looks exactly like...
He's just doing his thing, but it's just like he's just pitching his voice up manually a little higher. There's no audio effects.
I guess that's just trans Louise then, though, isn't it? Probably.
I guess maybe. Infinite timelines, Garrett. Anything's possible.
That's true. It's all true.
One of them shows up in an Ant-Man suit. One of them shows up holding Mjolnir or something.
Good. That's really... Luis is worthy, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like if anybody is, it would be him.
I think this... We didn't talk enough about Luis, and that's why we're cramming this in at the end, is because he really is the best part of these
episode,
movies.
Dude. We literally have been talking nonstop about Luis.
And we should have talked more about it. That's what I'm saying. Like
that crisp
that good.
punch, that Indiana Jones crisp punch he gets in that first movie, iconic. Yeah.
He whistles "It's a Small World," which is funny. That's a funny joke. That was right after Disney bought Marvel too, or like relatively soon.
Oh, is that?
Disney
Oh,
bought
yeah.
Marvel.
I guess that would have been. Oh my god. Oh, but anyway, before we go on another TVA Luis tangent, what do you say we kick it on over to the reference this week?
Let's do it.
Today's pop culture reference is the character John Munch. The character of John Munch is a police officer played by the late Richard Belzer. Munch originated on the NBC series Homicide: Life on the Street, on which he was a regular from its premiere in 1993 to its 7th and final season in 1999. When Homicide was canceled, Belzer was offered to continue the role of Munch on the new Law & Order spin-off series, Special Victims Unit. Despite briefly returning to Baltimore for Homicide the movie, the TV movie which served as the show's finale, Munch was a main character on SVU for its first 15 seasons, regularly making cameo appearances even after his departure.
Munch has essentially become a recurring Easter egg across media, with Belzer making additional appearances on the live-action series Law & Order, Arrested Development, The X-Files, The Beat, Law & Order Trial by Jury, The Wire, 30 Rock, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Belzer lent his voice to Munch on American Dad. The character was mentioned in the British detective series Luther, and was played by Muppeteer David Rudden on Sesame Street. I think he's also cameoed in a couple of comic books that I don't really know the full backstory on. I'm sure Munch is in the Marvel Comics universe.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I always get a kick out of seeing him on when he does his 30 Rock and Kimmy Schmidt appearances, because it's such a serious kind of character, such serious, long origins in history of like crime and stuff. So I always like it when I see him on stuff like that, or like Sesame Street. Oh, of course, that's always funny.
I think it's so funny that he was just such an interesting character that multiple creators were just like, let's get Munch on here. Let's get him, just throw him in.
We got Munch this week? Oh, hell yeah. We got a good episode.
Because it's one thing, for Homicide, which is essentially the precursor to The Wire, and that he makes a cameo on The Wire, like, that makes sense, But even the idea that they were like, hey, I know Homicide's getting canceled, but why don't we just take Munch and put him on our show.
That's
like
so,
on SVU.
I
so
love
funny.
that so much. That is golden right there. Out of all of these, I feel like the X-Files is an incredible idea to have roped into this universe, and I want to see that really badly. I guess he's like interrogating Mulder, I think is what I read.
Oh,
It's
really?
like
That's awesome.
it's like Mulder wakes up naked somewhere, and then he's like being investigated. I don't know. That's such a wild thing to me that I love.
Well, it's really interesting because Munch is like famously into conspiracy theories, so I feel like he and Mulder would get along really well.
Oh, is
They're kind
that
of
true?
Similar characters.
I
yeah.
didn't know that. That's great. That makes complete sense now. That also it tickles me that in the background of like an incredibly serious crime show, it's like, oh, aliens and monsters maybe do definitely exist, and they're doing things in the background of this universe. That's the best.
Well, that's another thing that we've lost to the supremacy of canon in the modern era is TV shows just used to be like, why don't we have Stewie on an episode of Bones?
Yeah.
That's a real thing that
Is that
happened.
real? For real? That's so funny.
100% real.
I could see Munch on Bones. That seems like it would be a exact crossover.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here that I'm kind of shocked he's not in, including more of the Law and Order spin-offs. Like, imagine him talking to Jeff Goldblum's character on Law and Order Criminal Intent.
I didn't know Jeff Goldblum was in Law and Order, if I'm being honest.
Jeff Goldblum and Vincent D'Onofrio.
That's
both
insane. Oh my god, I didn't know
Criminal
anything
Intent.
about.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my god.
Characters welcome. I remember when they used to show that on USA Network, and I'd be like, damn, Jeff Goldblum's in this?
Well, I do know there's some weird crossover between the 30 Rock verse because Dennis Duffy, isn't he like a detective or a lawyer in SVU maybe?
But he's not playing Dennis Duffy.
No,
is
I
he?
know that, but doesn't Munch make an in-character appearance in the 30 Rock verse?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing about, again, the reign of canon, is that it used to be, I mean, how many characters from Law and Order and Homicide probably crossed over, like, actor-wise?
Oh, probably
Law
a
and
million.
Order is known for having the same actors back multiple times to play completely different roles.
Is that
you know?
true, too?
Yeah.
I apparently know
absolutely.
nothing about Law and Order.
Oh, Law and Order is... I used to watch Law and Order a lot, like the original Law and Order a lot with my grandfather. And, I mean, I'm not a big cop procedural guy in general, but Law and Order is genuinely something special. It
They've
really
got that
is.
formula down. They've got so many of them.
And they've got that original Law and Order has such good characters too. I mean, not that SVU doesn't, but SVU I think is so heavy that it's kind of hard.
That's why I had to drop off that show. I was like, I'm gonna watch it all from season 1 to the end, and I couldn't make it through the first season.
There really are great characters on SVU, but I just can't. But regular Law and Order, it has a good mix of things going on, and it has, I mean, Jerry Orbach. I know we were talking about this before the show, but one of the basically. Oh, okay, no, never mind. We can't go down the Law and Order rabbit hole. Sometime we will marathon. You know, Munch should have been on Lost. That's going to be my last
He should have been
plug.
investigating the smoke monster.
Is Munch, one of the characters on Lost should have had a hallucination that Munch was on the island with them.
He was giving them numbers to punch into a keypad. He's like, I don't know, try this one.
And for the record, I know that obviously there are flashbacks to the mainland in Lost, but no, Munch has to be on the island. He
should have been on the plane. I'm going to say it. He should have been the pilot of the plane.
Canonically, Munch dies in Lost.
I can't believe it. Our plane crash killed Belzer. Oh my god.
Like, Richard Belzer's on the plane, but like it cuts to, like, you know, somebody back on the mainland still watching Munch on TV, and you're like, wait, how does that work?
Oh, I need to hear it from Hurley's mouth that he's gone, and then I'll believe it.
But Seamus, why don't we go ahead and save the rec center?
Let's do it.
Save the rec center!
Now it's time to save the rec center, where we give you our weekly recommendations. Garrett, what do you got this week?
I recently watched on Turner Classic Movies a film that's been on my watch list for a few years. I didn't really know what to go in expecting at all, but I've heard good things generally, and it is Sidney Lumet's 1982 comedy ? Death Trap, starring Michael Caine, Diane Cannon, and Christopher Reeve, Superman himself.
I don't know this movie, Garrett.
I really knew nothing about it, genuinely, until I just, like, I had seen it before, I had put it on my watch list, I was scrolling through TCM the other day looking for a movie to watch, and it popped up, and I was like, this sounds like a good time. And it's kind of it's not a whodunit, it's a who'll do it.
Oh.
It's a scenario where murder and hijinks are on the table, and you've got to figure out who's going to do what and what's going to happen.
That's a fun idea for a movie to me.
And, what characters know what, and what are characters' true intentions, and who's lying about what. And it was a stage play first, and it's clear that it's influenced by Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. I mean, even in the name, Death Trap, that's clear. But I like it so much more than any Agatha Christie stuff. I feel like every time we talk about murder mysteries on the show, I'm like... But not Agatha Christie. Just to be clear, not Agatha Christie. Orient Express is fine, but I just had a great old time with this movie. I feel like it's a movie I don't hear talked about a lot, considering the fact that it has a really good cast and a really good director, acclaimed director. And I feel like right now, this kind of meta, genre-bending murder mystery is so back right now. Obviously with things like Knives Out and Glass Onion and even Poker Face on Peacock. And then there's
everything
all of
Ryan Johnson is doing.
Yeah, everything Ryan Johnson's doing, but then you have other things that are kind of derivatives of what Ryan Johnson is doing. You have Only Murders in the Building and See How They Run, and even like Amsterdam, which, was a wet fart of a release that I didn't see. But you have all this stuff that's in the zeitgeist right now, so I think it's worth going back and checking out some of this older stuff that is influenced by the same things that these newer detective stories are influenced by. And I feel like there's no way that at least some of this did not influence Knives Out. There's no way Ryan Johnson hasn't seen this movie, because there are a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, just like Knives Out. Wow, that's crazy. Including, the mystery playwright's house that's full of weapons from various stage productions just like Knives Out. So I don't know how long it's on Turner Classic Movies for. I'm sure you can find it on DVD at your local library, but it's worth your time, and I think you'd really enjoy it, Seamus.
Yeah, I am always, for some reason, I always underestimate the complexity and the interesting things of the times of older mystery movies like that I may be a little desensitized to with more current mystery things that I'm more involved in, but they always delight me in how they can subvert my expectations, and I think that sounds like a really fun time.
But what do you have going on this week?
I had a very fun time playing the co-op story adventure crime game A Way Out this last week with my little brother. He decided that it was time. He made me buy it on sale. He was like, we're sitting down, we're playing this, and it was delightful. It's this small indie game based on everything is co-op based, trying to break out of prison with a friend and ultimately going on like a larger revenge quest that I did not think was going to be as big of a part as it was. But the game itself is pretty simple, bare bones levels of like get the thing and don't have the guard notice, but it really shines in the co-op gameplay when there's just like stupid little mini games around every level that you and whoever you're playing with can just waste 10 minutes button mashing, trying to win like an arm wrestling match, or, trying to hit a baseball very far that the other one is pitching. It can get really goofy and fun in just the playing of it, because you can just wander around and do whatever. It's like ambiguously set in like a 20s Shawshank style prison, but it's also like maybe the 70s. I don't know. It's very weird. But, it's exclusively co-op, so you can't really play it alone or with like a random person. You have to have like somebody you sit down with. But it is super fun, very well worth the whatever $10 I paid for it, since it is still a fairly small game. But I highly recommend it, and I would love to replay it with you, Garrett, when we can sit down. It's the rare.
That sounds great.
It's the rare couch co-op split screen experience that I very much miss in gaming. So I'd like to sit down with you and do that one sometime.
Well, that sounds like a great time to me. you've definitely sold me, Seamus. It sounds like Portal 2 co-op, but with even more of an excuse to screw around.
Oh, at 100%, yes. That is exactly what it feels like. And even playing online, the view is split screen with the other player's character. So
it doesn't even matter if you're together or not.
Exactly. So it's just a very weirdly unique kind of co-op experience where you can, like, you're almost specifically encouraged to mess around, and you can, like, see what the other person's doing, and, you know, just get into the weird shenanigans.
Well, once you've taken enough time to kind of forget what's going on with the puzzles and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh,
you know how
I mean, the puzzles are point A to point B. They are the easiest things on the planet. That's why I am highlighting so much of the screw around background stuff that you can do. I wouldn't have to say a word, Garrett. You could do it with your eyes closed.
I'm sure. But you know that point where you get to where you've, like, it's been long enough since you've played Portal that you've forgotten all the solutions to the puzzles, and so you can go back and play Portal again?
That I do know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I wanna allow you to have a little bit of time to reset, but I think once you're ready, I would love to sit down on the couch and play that through with you.
Definitely, brother. Let's do it.
But that wraps us up for this week's episode of Pop Culture Reference. If you want to reach the show on social media, you can find us at PCR_podcast on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. You can like us on Facebook. Email us directly at popculturereferencepod@gmail.com. Please engage on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the show out. And next week, I can't believe it's already time, Seamus, the triumphant return of Mando Bros for the Mandalorian Season 3 finale. Premiere.
Holy crap, I gotta catch up. Oh no.
It's the premiere. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I was reading in 2 weeks, it's the Last of Us finale, which you and I will have to be catching up on.
Oh boy, yep, I really got to do that. Very much have to do that.
But I'm very, in with one Pedro Pascal show, out with the other. So is life. Like sands through an hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Pascals of our lives.
But yeah, I'm excited-ish about that. I don't know.
I'm ready for it, man. I'm pretty pumped. I need some good Star Wars in my life. I guess I'm assuming that it'll be good Star Wars, but
I don't know, man. I mean, has Mando really been good since that season 2 opener?
I liked his stuff in Book of Boba Fett.
That's true. That's true. I will defend his stuff in Book of Boba Fett. I think that's the thing that's weird about it, though, is, like, I want that show, and I don't get that show because they did it in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, they're skipping some beats.
I want listless, Darksaber wielding Mando, and now it's just like, hey, don't worry, we got Baby Yoda back.
Back to square one.
So we're fine. And so, don't worry, we're gonna go back, we're gonna see Carl Weathers, he's gonna be our friend.
But it'd be so sad next week when we talk about the death of Carl Weathers. The death of Carl Weathers' character.
That would be crazy. I mean, it wouldn't be that crazy because who cares about Grief Karga? But
hey, you know his name, buddy.
But yeah, I'm looking forward, I guess, to I'm hoping they can bring me back around on Mando. That's my big push right now.
Well, we will see next week, brother.
All right. Well, looking forward to it, Seamus.
Adios, amigos.